All right. Hopefully everybody's coffee's kicking in and we're ready to go. This will be a somewhat technical talk about Alley Talks, and I tried to do a lot of code in the slides, and then I realized I hate code in slides, so I'll be hopping out of the presentation and kind of showing some stuff as well. I'm Mark Casillas. I'm a senior Drupal developer for Lullabot. I live in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I do a lot of stuff at Drupal. I've been with the Drupal community for a while. I'm on the conflict resolution team in the community working group, and I'm in the band The Random Addicts. If you want a sticker for the band, come see me. Want to talk a little bit about Alley Talks. What it is, it's a monthly virtual meetup that we do where we talk about accessibility and all things related to that. We've been meeting since 2017, I think is when Carrie Fisher started it. And I joined up in 2019 to kind of help out. If you have a accessibility talk idea that you want, we are always looking for speakers. And so please feel free to join us. If you go to Alley Talks, that's A11yTalks.com. And so we got this website, and basically what we do is we post our events on there, and then we live stream them on YouTube, and we do it once a month, and we kind of feature a website and whatnot, and it looks like this. Very easy, very simple. There are all these members that have started. We started out with just two people. It was Carrie and Donna, and Amy June joined, and then other people joined, and then I joined, and a couple more of my fellow bots joined as well just recently, which is really nice. We've got a lot of good help. When we got the site, I was kind of brought on to fix the site or make sure the site worked. And it was done by Gatsby. It was done by Gatsby really quick and dirty, which was really nice. It was free hosting, so we didn't have to worry about that. It was very fast, responsive site. And most importantly, it worked-ish. So I didn't have to do much about it. But then Gatsby got less supported. The site, when I inherited it, was very outdated, and I don't know if you've ever tried to update a Gatsby site from a previous version to the newer supported versions. Really not fun. It was all markdown for content, and I'll show you that in a second. But basically, every time that you had to update the site, you had to rebuild the site from on the host, and that's how it works. And that meant only I was the one updating the website, which was not very fun for me, I guess. It gave me something to do, but really there are other things that could be done. And so we decided to move to Drupal, where it's a content management system, so other people can log in and update the site. You know, the pros, it's easy to create and edit content. You can reference previous content, so we could reuse some stuff in there. We had the views, which I didn't write in there, which was easier to create a view than it was a list in a React JSX and whatnot. And for cons, there really wasn't none. It's a Drupal conference. That's why I said that. But yeah, okay, there was one. Having to migrate all that stuff from the Gatsby to the Drupals. But fortunately, we have the migrate module that really works really well. And the real heavy lift was creating the theme for it to look exactly the same. Basically, my marching orders were do whatever you want, just don't change anything. Except I guess the back end, which is what I did. Our content model, this is a screenshot of the actual Gatsby layout, and there's a folder called content, and you'll notice that they have content type of pages, so we already have content type, so there's a CMS there. And that content was just really had a little bit of markdown and a little bit of front matter to kind of identify the title and the template page, and the slug or the path to it was based on the name of the markdown file itself. And then it was just markdown, and that looked very, very easy to make. It was this is the mission page, and it's just marked down. There are more complicated pages in there for like the about section, which I'll get into later, but for the most part, it's real easy to do. We also had our list of members, which are the people that are help working. We had past and previous members or inactive members as well. Again, that's a markdown file, but that was really using all the front matter. Let's see if I can do this right. All the front matter is, the stuff between these little lines at the top and the bottom of a markdown file, if you're not familiar with it. And basically, it is a YAML file, but just in Markdown as well. So that makes it easier to create and everything. And then this basically is how the content ended up being pushed out at the end of the day. There's also a preview to each of the members, which I'll show in a little bit. So there's another content type that we have. Again, we have content types at Drupal, makes our lives easier. We have posts, which are the meat of the thing. I don't know why they were called posts. I didn't name them. I inherited them. I'll show you that I changed it later. But these are the actual, everything that is going on in there. So we had a lot of those to move over. And, that was a combination of front matter and then just straight markdown. But frankly, the actual markdown portion of it, the content area of the markdown, which is down here below the double lines, wasn't even being used. So I don't know why I kept recopying it, but I did just to keep it safe. And it had the different fields that it was doing. It had some tags, it had some media. I added speakers as a separate entity type, just because I wanted to add more features to the site itself that ultimately got rejected because I was told not to change anything. So, and that turns into this this page where we have the YouTube embed during this. There's a preview of it beforehand that's available, and then it's got some tagging, and everything is looking really good. And that's all done. And then there's also the preview of on the front page, which is just kind of like a teaser view of the content type. So that made a little bit of a change and had its own little component itself. So I went in there and made Drupal content types, basic page, the page. You have the event, which was previously called posts, but I called them events because that made more sense, because that's exactly what it was. We had the organizers, which eventually are going to change to just the users of the website, but I call them organizers here. And then I created a speaker content type for that thing that I was trying to do. I went ahead and created a speaker for that so I could do entity references just like that. Looking at the organizers again, if you take a look at the fields, you have your body, you have the callouts, whether or not they're current is a Boolean field, an image, links, pronouns, titles, all that matches to the front matter of the members MD markdown, kind of one-to-one. The only difference is the call out is an array of stuff, and the social information is an array of stuff. So I kind of truncated that there. And this is about where I started getting bored copying and pasting code. So this is going to get a little more sketchy as it goes around. But we had the profile card and everything else. Whether or not they're a current member, that goes along with current over here. And then the different call outs as a text and whatnot. So yeah, that way we can just go ahead and make it. So then if you take a look at the Gatsby components, these are just all components. The beauty of Gatsby that I enjoyed about it is that everything was a single component. It kind of was its own single directory component, but you just kind of mix and matched them all over the place. And you had your layout, and more importantly, you had the member bio and the member card. Now, the member bio is the full template for the content type. The member card was just a little preview one that we had. And then the member list was actually the view, which we didn't have to use because we didn't have to create it. And then there's a pass list, which is different as well. If you look inside the member bio component, you'll notice that there are two things in there. There's the index.js and then the CSS to it. If you're talking about single directory components, that's basically a single directory component. The only thing that's missing is the component.yaml file. So those are the three things you need in a single directory component. You need the twig file, not the JS file. Any styles are going to be bound to it. And then you need a component file, a component.yaml file, which will be referencing or just basically letting Drupal know that it exists. And so if you take a look at the Drupal theme, I created a Drupal theme simply with, Drush generate theme, and then I added a components folder. I did have to download at that time the single directory components module, but now that's in core. You don't even have to enable anything. It is just a thing that's there for you. Create a folder called components. And then you can kind of space them out. You notice how there are different groups of components. There's the atoms, which are the atoms. If you know about atomic design, you have the small things like buttons, field lists, texts. All those are put into one thing. I created a blocks for the different blocks I was generating. And then the content, I separated that into the different types of content. And even that, why is that there again? And even then, I separated them again into the kind of component that they are, whether or not it's the teaser, the full organizer, or the pass member. And then I created the organizer.component.yaml, the CSS. Basically, the beauty of it with the CSS and the Sass is they weren't really using Sass the way you should. So I was able to just rename the file organizer.css, and it picked up everything. I had to make a couple tweaks, and I'll show you those in a second. And then the organizer twig file is, of course, your twig, your layout, which I'll show in a second as well. I wanted to point out that the schema file or the component.yaml file, it's the name of your component, same name as the folder. All three things need to be named the same. Otherwise, they don't work. Which is fun when you name the folder events and then you name the file event, all the files event, and then can't figure out why it doesn't work. That's why. So watch your how you're working on the naming, and the point of this is to kind of give you the schema of it. The schema file is just basically saying that, hey, here is what you're following as far as the content's concerned. You give it a name, status, group, and then the props tells the different objects or the different fields that it's expecting. And that's going to be used for other tools. But so you notice I put the field in here and everything like that, a little slot for where I'm going to put the media image and everything like that. But frankly, I wasn't using that. And all that the component file needs to be is a file in the directory. If you don't use it, it's not necessary. In a theme, in a module, if you're going to put a component in a theme, you need at least the props of some kind. I don't know why that's different, but it is. So don't get caught on that as well. But frankly, I mean, it's nice to use. There have been many examples. I have my friend Kyle created a module where he can create a paragraph just based on the components in a folder, and it takes the component.yaml file and actually generates the fields for the UI in the front. So that's a different talk, though. I didn't do that. If you're taking a look at the JS file, this is basically all it is you have a you import your React, you import a link from Gatsby, which is another component that you're using. You have to import the CSS all the time, and then basically all it does is return. This is the teaser card. It just basically returns a div of content and then it exports it at the end of the day. And this is, I believe, tired of copy and paste encoded image, so I'm going to escape out of that, and I can show you what happens with that. This is actually the full member bio, and it goes through all these different things where it makes sure, it outputs can everybody see that okay? Okay, good. It makes sure that it has, when you create a React class, there passes a thing called props, which is basically an object of data. And then so it goes and makes all this different stuff. It makes sure that the things are there in order to create it. And then if I pop over to, I opened up a bunch of different things I didn't mean to. To generate the twig, it's basically the same thing, except they got a little easier way about it. It actually just double checks the field in twig. I have a little block here, which basically I use that for the Storybook. so that there's a default image, but when I'm actually generating the file in Drupal, I replace that block with the image field basic stuff. And that's pretty much it. I also use this attributes add class, member bio. And the reason that you really want to use your attribute, you want to print out the attributes in a single directory component, is if you take a look at the actual site, and this is my local dev. If you inspect it, you'll notice that it actually gives. Where is it? There it is. Carry. Oh no, that's down here. I had that marked out and then I didn't. I'm using, of course, I enabled the twig development mode, so that's why you get to see all this. In production, you don't see any of this. But if you take a look at here, and that's hard to see, I bet. Oh, there we go. That's easier. It actually gives this data component ID to the thing. It also will output like a little icon for you, so that you can see where your component starts and how all the different components are in there. They all get a different emoji, which is really cool that they did that. And then, yeah, this just puts it out there. But when you are able to have that data component ID, instead of having a CSS file that is based on, this SAS file is based on the fact that it's called member bio, the class itself, you can actually take the CSS and use... I didn't do it on this one. You can actually use a selector called data. I'm going to switch over to a different one. Sorry. So this is a hockey site that I'm working on for back home. And the components that I put there, come on. This is live coding at its worst. Themes, custom, NM hockey, components. Let's go content. Player card. You can actually use the data component ID as a selector instead of just a straight class. Because if you get classes that clash, it still can happen if you have something called the member card two different places. And this gives you the ability to really put that in there. You also notice that we are embedding or layering the CSS a little bit. Everything that's inside there can be layered to make sure that it's really coupled heavily to the component itself. And you get that out of using this data component ID in there. Okay, back to our regular scheduled program. But so the CSS, we weren't really using anything special in the SAS, so I just used that. I did want to show how different the A11yTalks library is, because it's really only pulling in a couple of things. It's only pulling in some base variables, which is defining colors, which also, if you look at this organizer CSS, I'm not even using the base colors that I'm supposed to be, so I should probably go change that. It's pulling in some element definitions, kind of like a reset, if you want to reset all your information. And then it's pulling one block CSS and one layout CSS. Everything else is coming in through the components and are generated. The CSS is only pulled in when that component is pulled in. So it just makes everything a lot easier on there. And then basically, if you take a look at this entire site, the blocks are just a straight component. Inspect. Thank you. Even this block is just a component, which honestly, if you took a look at this block and edited this block, let's see. The site branding, and you go in and look at it. Oh, you can't because it's not editable. But all the site branding is a different component of its own that I put into blocks and I put in here as site branding. And that just straight out pushing everything in there. It's grabbing the site logo from the Drupal and the site name and everything, and it'll reference to the front. But all these blocks that are not being changed can just be components by themselves that are just outprinting the components itself. And then instead of doing a member list, which is basically a component that creates a section and then iterates through the different cards that they're showing for the front page, which is right here, excuse me. On the About page, it's a special page that I had to do all sorts of work on there to make sure that the member bios are there. And in this case, this is now a view in a block that I just put it onto the About page instead of having to programmatically figure out if it's the right page or not. I let the interface of Drupal take care of it. And then each of the bio cards are their own kind of thing. And this whole output is all done through Drupal in the single directory components. The other thing that I did is I created a storybook with it, which is Storybook is a great way to show off your designs. And there is a Storybook module that was created by the same person that created single directory components. It's a little bit different than your regular Storybook. It is actually using a server-side Storybook, so it needs to be connected to the Drupal. If it doesn't have the ability to connect to Drupal, it doesn't know how to get the styles from Storybook, and that does make it difficult to use with React Storybooks, or if you want to use something that's not just a Drupal Storybook. But it does a great job of being able to show off what you're doing. You got your different colors, your different blocks, and you got your organizers of the different types. If there's a teaser, and this image is missing because I've got the wrong URL in there, but that's why Carrie is on Amy June's thing. And then the past one's real easy. This kind of shows it, shows what's going on with all of those. One other thing I wanted to point out is there's another module that I use very heavily. It's called No Markup. And basically what that does is you'll notice when you put a field into a twig file, you get all the field markup, including the thing that says it's a field, what kind of field, and all that stuff. And if you want just your pure what your twig is going to be, you can yank that stuff out without having to rewrite the whole field elements on there. And that is pretty much all I had. I can go back to slideshow now because I'm done showing. And I just want to remind everybody, if you want to work on contributing, tomorrow's a full contrib day. That's kind of why we're all here, just to help bring up Drupal. And we can work on recipes and all sorts of other great things in core. And then if you have any judgment about me, scan the QR code and judge away. So do you have any questions? I've got 2 whole minutes for questions. Excuse me. Jeez. Nope. All right, then. Thank you. Thanks for finishing DrupalCon with me. And we'll see you at the closing ceremonies. Thank you.